public notice. The board of the City of Mount Juliet will have a work session in the commission chamber today at now. And we will go ahead and set the adjournment for 6 p.m. without objection. All right. No objections from that. We'll set our adjournment time at 6 p.m. With that, I'll turn the floor to Commissioner Mullally. I saw her coming, so I thought. Like it. There should be theme music.
All right, where are we? All right. Ready? Okay. I co-sponsored this workshop for the purpose of the public hearing a board discussion regarding a new city hall and ultimately a justification for it. So this is not a discussion of the downtown proposal project itself, but only for the city hall portion of it. Up until the budget was approved in June, City Hall was at capacity and there was justification for building a new one. It was at full capacity with no room for expansion. So as the community grows, so does city government. That's just how it works. Since then, however, more options have become available for consideration. One being the purchase of a warehouse on Clemens that now is the home of 3 departments, I believe, opening up space within our current city hall for further expansion. Another being, we just purchased 14.7 acres on Clemens. I recently saw a drawing from Public Works from several months ago that reserved a section for a city hall on that property. There have been ideas pitched for this property, 2 of which being pickleball, tennis courts, and possibly a recreation center. So the question is, which need is greater? A new city hall or parks and recreation, or can we afford both? Additionally, there are other options that could potentially become available in the near future, which begs the question, should we wait and see if those play out? I am receiving pushback from residents over a new city hall versus Capitol Road improvements, 2 of which being East Division and Beckwith Road, south of I-40. So I just believe that we, as a board, need to be fiscally responsible with our tax dollars and being able to justify how we spend it. So that's the reason I co-sponsored this workshop. So I would like to just throw out there, open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I see somebody put together a list of possible city halls. So we got like 5 on here. And we'll say I'm not here to try to throw shade on the downtown project. I'm not trying to attack the downtown project on it, but we have, since it was initially introduced, we have done some other stuff over on Clemens and that. And I think that's kind of your point for this as well. So anybody else?
Yeah.
Commissioner Justice.
I will say I like the project that Measure 1 has come up with, to the point that I voted positive on a $1 million budget item that was put in the budget. I think we were headed that direction now. And it's like Commissioner Lally says, we have some changes that have been made. But one of my biggest issues with City Hall has been that it's taken up revenue producing space. And you're not going to find any better revenue producing space than right on the main street here. So what I think happened here by us making the changes that we've made, I think what we've done is just, we've actually provided now that Imagine One can come in and do their project and let us continue with a presence at this location, but a smaller footprint. That's kind of what I saw that as being, because now we don't have, like you said, we don't have to put all the people that we've had at City Hall in the same location. We've got other locations for them. And as for the people that are pushing back, I can see their point. But when you and I talked about during some of our workshops and some of our conversations, we talked about the acreage over on Clemens Road. To buy that, I think we had all agreed that what we wanted to do was put an aquatic center and pickleball courts and things of that nature at that location. That's just our conversation. It's
Oh,
just
I
not, I didn't say us. I'm saying Commissioner Mullally now.
I heard all.
No, it's just our conversation we were having, and we had this also just during workshops. But I don't think we need to abandon the project, and we do need to get out of this building. I mean, right now, our planning director sits right next door to a sewer grinder pump and has for many years in her office downstairs. This was a great bank building and it served its purpose. It's time for it to be gone and for Mount Juliet to do what we need to do to grow in this area and create that downtown that we've been looking for a long time. So
I have
my 2 cents.
Yeah, I have a comment on the roads, and I don't disagree with the concern that roads are our top priority as a city. But if we decided to take all the money that could potentially be spent on City Hall right now, there'd be no money to spend it on. There'd be no projects to spend it on. I think that the design plan's still a few years out for that road there because you're talking about addressing the piece from the interstate going back up to the 4-way stop. Is that the main thing? Yeah, that's still under design. We don't have any money to spend on it. And I think Division Street's some of that as well. I don't know, and Public Works directors back there, if there's any just bills out there waiting to be paid at the moment to it. So I could say this, there'll always be road projects that need to be done. And we know a bill is coming due on it, but at the same time, this building here has probably run its course for what can be done with it. I mean, to me, it's a discussion on really 3 options with Clemens Road. You just want to set up shop there, put the fire department someplace else, which is a whole other discussion for where they go. Do you want to move City Hall somewhere else and just put this whole area up for sale as part of this project? Speaking of the Image One project, put the whole kit and caboodle up for sale here that we have, or do we want to try to renovate this place or have Image One do something? So to me, it's like 3 options: somewhere else, renovate what we have, or do something here on this side.
Real quick, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
What is the name of the company? Is it Image One or Imagine One? Imagine One.
Well, I was
Okay.
imagining a different name.
Okay, well, you're identifying. Yeah, sorry. So you're going to identify as Imagine One today, correct? Okay, gotcha. I just want to make sure. Okay, I understand. And your pronouns? Never mind.
I probably broke somebody else's copyright.
I'm sure I just ticked somebody else.
Well, good. You took the focus off me just totally murdering the company names.
It's okay. Because I've called them both myself, so.
Vice Mayor, you have anything you want to add?
Well, thank you, Mayor. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunity here for the city. And we're all trying to be good stewards of what land that we do have, what projects that are currently in place, as well as, trying to make sure that we are looking long-term. So for me, obviously, the things that I've been looking at, talking about, which is something that does line up with Proposal B, which is giving Clemens Road, something out there where we can be able to justify for City Hall, the Aquatic Center. Obviously, that is the big picture. I mean, our city is growing. And it seems that we have an opportunity to look at, some opportunities to support our schools with their swim team options. We've got some some opportunity for future growth out there. And then, of course, what Commissioner Justice stated was also giving the ability to release some of the high traffic area of Mount Juliet Road, and giving that to a business that could obviously give back to, our city with tax-paying dollars and supporting our local businesses. Obviously, purchasing that other property over on Clemens Road, that's always been an opportunity to help offset some of the pressure, because the building's already built. We can, be able to move in some of these other agencies over to those buildings. I don't see that really being a city hall. I think that was more towards supporting, all the other different departments that are over there, from the fire department and along with whoever else is over there, and making sure that we can be able to, work on the vehicles, get them out of the weather, get our equipment out of the weather, and be able to hurry up and get everybody into a building and be able to offset the pressure here so we can be able to make a determination for this area. I was hoping to see if, is it Image One? Imagine One. Okay. I don't want to mess it up, but since I've got two, two names.
I take credit.
They're identifying as Imagine One tonight.
Imagine One. Okay. So,
Imagine there's only one.
all right. So anyways, but I was
They do.
hoping that we could be able to get some, some numbers, some updated numbers. I think that's always been the topic, which is looking at what we do have when it comes to the value of the property, and showing updated numbers, because I think that was the biggest concern of mine I think it was maybe 4 or 5 meetings ago, where it was maybe like the numbers were maybe 12 to 18 months out. I think that was the only discussion that I had, was getting some updated numbers
There's
for the value.
There's another component too that we talked about and briefly discussed with them, is that one of the options included that them building a space here for City Hall that was a cost plus agreement. And I think it was a cost plus 10% was what was initially thrown out, but there hadn't been any negotiation on that. And so I'll start the negotiation and tell you that cost plus 5% sounds a whole lot better. So, but just using that,
Yeah.
we're not going to find that opportunity to save the taxpayers millions of dollars in any other location. And if we can get that here and come in with a downsized footprint, that's even more money. And, and I will tell you also, we were talking about the aquatic center over on Clemens Road, as opposed to, doing some other, the projects. One of the pieces that we've got here, that's a different pot of money. So that money is not part of the general fund as it stands, because that money comes from the hotel motel tax and would be part of the what's the word I'm looking for? Capital improvements. So if we wanted to do something that nice over on the Clemens Road property that we now own, that we pay cash for, we could actually do a bond issue on that 2% money and use the money out of the capital improvements fund to pay for that comes from the hotel motel tax to pay for the bond issue. And that doesn't come from the taxpayers. That's actually paid by tourists and people stopping in here. So
Yeah,
so,
that one's that I like kind of where you're going with that, but kind of off this one. But
I just wanted to give her some ammunition
No,
to talk to some people. If they do come back and say that, just let them know it's not the same pot of money. There's other.
But I think the more important point that you hit on was the construction of a city hall house plus, like you said,
5%.
3%.
3%, yeah.
But
Say that a little louder.
whatever that works out to be, because that's a real consideration if you talk about pulling that out here, because they're not going to be able to sit there for like this long extended period. Is like, well, whenever y'all get worked out, whatever you're going to do someday with this, we'll start on our project, but you're here, there. We can't tear down your existing city hall because you have nowhere to go. It's this whole coordinating. It's kind of like moving offices in here when all the offices are full. It's hard to do too. So that's a very important piece for any of this to be successful, is how does one move city hall when there's no city hall to go to, and how does one build a city hall
And where you gonna put them when we do?
Yes.
Right.
So it's kind of those gymnastics, and I'm looking at gymnastics on the map. I guess it's gymnastics of trying to get to all those places. And then we still got of course, the fire department to.
That was my next question, was the fire department. How are we going to do that?
Yeah.
Have we determined if we're going to be moving that further out or moving it within, or?
Well, to not get too far off City Hall, the topic, but I mean, if you talk about the land as a whole, the fire department does have to be addressed to do that.
Location can't change much because they've got a 5 mile radius that it has to attach to. So, I mean, we can't really move it too far from where it's at right now.
I have our chiefs here, but I've had several conversations, and I'll gladly allow them to wave their hands. And if I get any of this wrong, but my conversations have been mostly about trying to move it closer to Old Lebanon Dirt Road to be able to close that gap going down towards the county line down Old Lebanon
The
Dirt
cobblestone landing area out
Road.
that
Yes,
way.
believe it or not, the worst offender is the backside of
Chandler Point.
Chandler Point.
Yeah.
Once you get past about Bluebird on there, they fall out of the 5 mile radius, and just simply shifting the station further south corrects that. And with the new station up on the north end, we're not losing any coverage that way. So
We have any development coming in that direction?
ironically, we do.
Oh, really? Okay.
That is been discussed.
I muted the microphone, just to let you know.
They are options.
Okay.
Now, whether you want to pay that cost, ain't nothing in this world for free.
No.
But
Okay.
so it's about 1,500 moving parts that need to be juggled all at the same time. Shouldn't be any problem.
So coming out of what we're talking about tonight, one of the things we need to decide, I mean, Imagine One has got a lot of money already invested into this with their planning. So we probably need to lock down maybe at the next meeting through resolution, you know, if we want to do this and what we need it to look like. And some of, I mean, generally if I'm writing a grant, you know, I'm going to put whatever the specifications are for the equipment or whatever I need. We need to make sure that that is in the grant. I would put that in the grant. We need to also have a resolution for minimum sizes.
Yeah,
So in a future meeting, would you not agree with that? Or
I agree with that, but I do have a question about this picture. Is there any more to this picture than somebody just dragging and dropping about 4 boxes onto a map?
no? I can answer that already.
That was just hypothetical.
Okay.
You could do. It wasn't anything from an engineer or anything, an architect.
Oh, yeah, it's,
You could do
But
fields
scale.
and things of that nature there too, but.
Well, I don't know about topo or any of this. other
Yeah, no,
stuff.
it's just for tied in with the proposal, but you could do fields, you could not do the city hall there, you could do the aquatic center. There's been some talk about
Yeah.
that, about pickleball and sports fields.
Highly conceptual,
Exactly. Perfect.
not to scale.
not to scale. Well, yeah, and I guess my concern is one corner of that parking lot and the other corner of that parking lot might be 100 feet different elevation.
Mhm.
I would hope it's not that bad.
So I guess the other
With
question I
rainwater.
have is for Imagine One, if we did the cost plus whatever that number turns out to be, would there be an opportunity? I mean, does it have to be on this particular land here, or does it have to be? I mean, if it's with one street over, is that an opportunity there? And again, that's going to change a little bit because that's saving taxpayer dollar, and that's no pressure on you guys, but it's just throwing it out there. That gives your development more land if, you know, to be able to develop on, as well as an opportunity to.
Hey, Matt, you want to just come
Sorry
up to the
about that.
podium?
Matt Gardner, 4603 Skymont Drive, Nashville. I mean, we're obviously happy to look at anything. I mean, and we've talked to several of you individually about this over the last year and a half. You know, we feel strongly that good cities have good, strong downtowns, and good, strong downtowns include city halls. When you look at Franklin, you look at Gallatin, you look at some of these Middle Tennessee, very, very strong downtowns,
Lebanon.
and City Hall is downtown. You know, it's in walking
Well, theirs
distance.
is actually moved now.
Um, and so we, you know, that being said, I think the difference, as you said, you know, is it across the street? You know, is it where the parking lot is there if you can acquire the land next door, or is it on Clemens Road? And I think if you're looking far off site, I mean, we're never going to say no off the cuff, but I think it'd probably be a little bit harder for us to do something like that. I mean, it's not as accretive to our property. I mean, one of the
Sure.
things that we like having all of this around is we know it's going to be City Hall and this is going to be downtown. If everything's moving to Clemens Road, is Clemens Road going to be downtown? If you've got all the city functions right there, you know, down, you know, then you start getting all, you know, as they grow. I mean, we all know larger cities, you start getting, you know, at some point you guys are going to start getting lobbyists and all those sort of fun things, picking your brain. But you start, I mean, people want office space close to the corridors of power, and that's City Hall. And so that's part of our process and part of our project is to provide some of that space next to that nexus.
So basically what you're saying is, and you're being so nice and going around the world and being the statesman that you are, and I'm going to be a little more blunt.
Please.
You're willing to negotiate, but you're not committing to anything, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
But we have
that's all I need. That's all I need.
that number would be higher on an offsite
Sure.
project at a minimum. I can
Right.
assure that. But we'd rather not do that in
Yeah.
a very, very strong but non-committal, negotiable way.
I kind of figured that's what the case was.
So my last question, Mayor, if you don't mind, do we have a number from our staff that is now with the new building that we just purchased over there on Clemens? We've got some staff out of here. We're relocating. Can we get a number of what is going to be in, not just a number, but also the staff that's going to be in either building, whether if it's going to be option A or option B or C? Do we have a number of what's going to be in there so we could be able to at least justify how that's going to work? And also if there's any, with those departments that are going to be in there, is there going to be any type of, I don't want to say cost, because again, it's kind of right up the street, but is there any concern about having them so, you know, either so far from each other, or is it going to be a process to streamline, or is it easier? What's the benefit if we are going to keep this building here versus over at Clemens with the other departments that are currently over there? So if we can have a pro and con as well as those departments and the head count that's going to be left in the new building, that'd be very helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can get that. You want us to have that for you by the next meeting or, well, actually.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be an ongoing discussion anyway, so.
I could actually get that.
Yeah.
Like I think at one time there was proposed 40,000 square feet, then it went down to 25. So probably a sweet spot to 30. So you got some room to grow in the future. And our distance from them, once East Hill Street opens up, even from Clemens Road, if the city hall did remain here or in this vicinity, that works.
Sure.
There's some place, for example, the public works facility in Lebanon is on the opposite side of the city from where the actual city hall is, and it works. The city, that was probably a good move on the city's behalf of putting public works, and I think the director here, they can speak to that as well. Simply because of the amount of trucks that come in and out of public works during the day and the parking restrictions, you would have that, especially some of the sizes of the trucks that they utilize. So I think that works well, but I can get you that information.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's important to remember that we're talking about buying a lot of property here from the city, and there's a lot of money coming to the city from that purchase. The purpose of us buying the property is because we're adding 250,000 feet of office and retail space. If we're moving City Hall out of this, we're probably not building 250,000 feet of space. So I don't know that we have a need for this land on Hill Street and where City Hall is. So just, that's a consideration when you're talking about, you're basically getting a free City Hall for this property. Almost. I mean.
Okay, your
numbers
version
are
of free and
close.
mine probably a little different than.
Well, we don't know what the numbers are yet, but you're getting a significant amount of money for this property. We need to negotiate that at some point. And we don't know what the construction cost of City Hall is going to be yet, but it's going to be a pretty significant offset. So
I just wrote down Mark said free.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
I said almost free.
And he's on camera, so
That
we
was
can
in
lock him in
Big
on
letters
that.
too, Mark, by the way. Or a great big free
Yeah.
letters.
It's, yes.
Yeah, okay. They, them.
But I think that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're talking about where's the money coming from?
Would cost neutral be a better term?
Close to cost neutral.
Okay.
Revenue neutral.
But still, we're building a lot of office space and things that are, to Matt's point, centered around City Hall as being a downtown. Otherwise, if City Hall's not a part of it, we're basically building phase 2 of Vintage Station. It's a totally different project. So
Good point.
And
we're
Well-
trying to do something, we're trying to build that downtown.
Mayor, for me.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, great points. Thank you, sir.
So here's, we need from, this is what I would like to see from Imagine One, would be a contract. Okay, I need a price to start with. You're going to give us X number of dollars. I know that there's an appraisal that went on out here, and that appraisal was for the pole barns and whatever. And it was I don't know, it's like $36 million, something crazy. You know, and I know y'all want to give $2 million, right? So, well, okay.
you want to come up to the podium, please?
And I mean, we're talking semantics at this point. We kind of know what we're talking about as far as, I mean, was it an appraisal? Was it an evaluation?
Well, that's important because it's different than appraisals. So if you look at what the city has actually insured this building for, it's $2 million. Okay, so when we're talking about something where city managers brought a figure of $8 million to you with no comps, but the insurance policy that his office took out is $2 million on the building.
I don't think it was $7 million for this building.
Well, it was for, this plus something else. It's
That
the,
was for all of the properties, was it not? For all of the structures on all of the properties. We have a
Yeah.
house up the road, then we've
Yeah.
got a fire department, we
Yeah.
have public works.
so we
Yeah,
just
so-
adjust, pole barns, and this one was specific because it's a specific construction type that would be mirrored. in-
Well, one is a house that could be sold for $300,000 or $400,000 just
Absolutely.
by itself.
Absolutely,
So,
300,000 or 400,000, but not a million. Right. So
who said it was worth $1 million? Did somebody say that?
what you would have, if you look at that estimate of value, that's about what that portion of that land would actually be. So you're actually exactly right. That would be about $300,000 or $400,000 for that house,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be $1 million. So we have to just be reasonable about that, right? And then yeah, which we're gonna
Yeah.
get a
We need an
written
offer.
that's based on all of the available data that we've been provided with. We are absolutely,
And now,
rigorous
what I
with
would
that.
also like to see is that, and the offer would be, and it would be two separate issues, but I don't think it needs to be
Yeah.
convoluted, putting it
Yeah.
all together, but I would like to see an offer for the land and the buildings. And then we probably need to figure out what it would City Hall would need to look like. I would also like to know what, we need a construction cost for the new City Hall, what that would be. Like I said, that's two separate pieces. And then if we could start getting some construction costs on what it would cost if we built offsite over at another location, that would be for us to develop comps and some specifications as to what the building needs to look like.
and just as a
And,
matter of order, we owe you the former information on the 23rd. In the resolution that commission passed, you asked us for, if I'm not mistaken, either a binding number or a methodology to get to a binding number for the acquisition of the land and buildings.
23rd of
23rd of October, if I'm not mistaken.
next meeting.
Believe that's what you requested, isn't it?
Our next meeting is the 23rd of October.
Yes.
Columbus Day.
Yeah.
Oh, we still celebrate that. I figured they tore that statue down too.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of due diligence since the last meeting to try and arrive at a methodology and a harder number than what we've been tossing around through estimates. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, again, I'm not saying, emphatically, let's just build right here. I am saying, let's look at the options, but we also need to get those, what the cost estimates would be to build a City Hall, Clemens Road, or some of the other places that Commissioner Mullally was talking about.
Well, I think the city manager has something he wanted to add.
Yeah, and I appreciate these guys. Of course, what we insure the existing city hall for, which is an older building, is totally different than what you would value a new building for. And the appraisal that we had is an appraisal that was issued by I believe the same folks that those guys use. We spent $5,500 for it. So, and I specifically asked in that proposal that it would state exactly what the values were worth if you sold them to the average person that was wanting to buy a building and use that building for a specific purpose, not necessarily to mow it down. So that may be where the confusion's coming in, is if we put the city hall up for sale today, say, for example, and sold it, and somebody wanted to buy the property and the building, it would have a different value than if you were just paying to buy the property because you had no intent of using it. An example would be, we just bought a building for Mr. Library on 70. We have every intent of tearing it down, but we didn't just pay for the land value. We paid for the value of the property and the building itself. So that's similarly what we were looking for here. So if they'd like to submit something different than what the appraiser that we hired.
Well,
appraisal
but you do have to be really careful, because when you start talking about appraisals, you're talking about official estimates versus roundabout possible, maybe someday it'll be worth something. You can't do that. And so you got an evaluation, then you got an appraisal.
So is it market value? Is that what you're looking for, or what is it?
You're going to look for market value on all the property and then come to a conclusion as to what the total of all of that is. And then once you've got that market value put together, then you can go to them and ask for them to do cost plus 2.5%. So 2.5, yeah. We're going down. If I have another conversation, it's going to be 2. So I just let you know. But, you know, and then we start deducting and moving back and forth, and then negotiation begins. And then, you know, what we do is we send it to Gino Marchetti, who is, I mean, he's a lawyer. So, I mean, he's paid to be a jerk, and we let him do the negotiation. And so, yeah. So, I mean, you know, I just think we need to narrow this down and come in and say, this is what we're going to do, because otherwise we got you guys floating in the wind out here trying to figure it out. We've got people in the public that want to know, and if we've got other opportunities and other options that are going to be just as financially strategic as this one, then we need to look at those.
Need some numbers to make a decision with.
So I have a question. Right now, we have an MOU, which is a non-binding. We don't. Nothing. Okay. All right.
That's up for second.
All right. So say they present an offer, which is good, and we accept it and say this passes at second reading. Would the partnership and the numbers and everything at that point include a legal binding contract, or how does that work?
That would actually be a Mr. Marchetti question, I think. I mean,
You have a letter of intent / memorandum of understanding with enough detail that you can consider it and say, there's enough good in this that we can move forward with it in good faith, so it's not binding. And then you go to the contract stage. And he said,
what normally happens in a situation like this is they would present an LOI, a letter of intent, and basically lay out the ground rules as to what they're going to offer and all the terms and the agreements, you know, without going into a long contractual piece. We would look at that and send it to Mr. Marchetti, and he would say, yeah, this looks good, or no, it doesn't. We would vote on the letter of intent. Ms. Marchetti, is that correct? We would vote on the letter of intent. And at that point, we say yes or no, actually. Once we've got that in a yes position, then we would send that back to them, and they would move forward with a contract, an actual contract, where all the negotiation would take place between the attorneys. And then that would come back to the city commission to be voted on. Mr. Marchetti, is that accurate?
sounds pretty good.
Okay.
It can be a truth.
Okay.
If it feels like we're close on the design and miles on the particulars.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Brian Heuser, 918 Warren Street. I'm part of the Imagine One team. I just want to say, I think this is a really important conversation. I really appreciate Jennifer Mullally, Commissioner Mullally, for calling it. The city of Franklin just went through the same process. Good people in great cities do this, right? They do have these honest, big debates. At the end of the day, the city of Franklin, and I encourage you to take a look at what they've been doing there, known for their downtown, known for their city hall, just decided in May, although it was not conclusive, there was lots of division, that they're moving forward with a historic rebuild of their city hall. The city has committed almost $100 million. And if you look at why, it's because they actually believe that in Franklin, a walkable city, a downtown city needs a robust city hall. I believe that's what we've been talking about for a year and a half. I believe that walkable center of Mount Juliet was the original premise under which we were invited to partner with you. I think we've done due diligence to try and line up all different kinds of scenarios. And we have spent an extraordinary amount of sum of money to try and realize those original conversations, which look a lot like what Franklin is doing. So I think this is a phenomenal way to start. I would encourage you to take a look at the debates that have been going on in Franklin. And Commissioner Mullally, you might find that there's good, honest people on both sides of that debate. And all of them are concerned about what happens in that city core. I think it's a really strong parallel to the conversations that we're having here, and it might help in the discernment process. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Do we have a path forward, you think? That is
I-
a declared path forward that we can, they know what they need to do. Y'all comfortable, you know what you need to do first. And
I think they're going to bring a methodology or a dollar amount from that.
then let the games begin.
I think that's the next step before we can have any conversations about here, there, or yonder. But I'm not wrapped around the axle on it being here or there. I do see a lot of points to having it here as far as walkability, and that's the design. But it's a decision the board has to make as a whole if you feel it's a better value of having it over at Clemens Road.
I mean,
The building's gonna cost what the building costs. It's not gonna
it's the
get,
plus 2% that we're going to make the difference on.
well, it's not free either place. Plus, if you go over on Clemens Road, you've got a lot of other infrastructure to consider on top of just the city hall. You've got site work that may have to be considered on this.
Oh, there's going to be lots of sites.
Yeah.
You're talking about lots of site work over there.
So, I mean,
You think they're mad about dynamite now?
that's all. I think probably the quickest path forward, if the city hall is needed, is probably what they're proposing. But is it what the board is going to get behind as far as the vision on doing this? And is it something that everybody's going to be comfortable conveying that message when people ask, why are you doing this? Why did you give up your land, or this, that, and the other? I mean, it's a conversation and something that has to be explained. People need to know why we do this when it appears we're doing this at the expense of improving roads. And those are all fair questions. If I'm sitting out there on that 4-way stop every day when I can't get through it, and I see Mount Juliet building this Taj Mahal out here, I'm gonna have questions too about the commission's priorities. But that's a message that we have to convey in the right way to people to understand that if it was stroking a check would fix all that, we would find a way to stroke those checks.
That's my biggest thing, is being able to justify it, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have this discussion before the public.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you for pulling everybody together. Thank you guys for coming out. We're not here to waste your time. It's all about making sure that we utilize the land as well, our resources that we currently have. So a lot of different directions that we want to take in consideration. So, but I think coming out of this, between what Mr. Martin, our city manager, has to get to us, and also what you guys can be proposing, It's going to give us a little bit better direction. So we thank you both. All three of you. Thank you.
All right. There's nothing else. We'll, that objection, we will adjourn.
Thank you.